What do you think is the best proof for a soul? This is one I've personally had a tough time with, because the truth is that the Old Testament isn't big. It's big on the idea of that there's a soul, because it says right in Genesis that God breathes breath into Adam and all of this. But there's nothing in the Old Testament that explicitly references the idea of an afterlife, for example. So what's the rational case? I know that you've discussed this before. What's the rational case for the idea of a soul? What exactly is a soul? What is there a rational case for an afterlife, or is that just something that we've made up to comfort ourselves?
I would say that the arguments for immortality that I think are the most impressive, and actually these are arguments that, for whatever reason, end up being a little bit philosophically more technical than the arguments for God's existence, or at least it's a little bit harder to state them in a non-technical way. But the arguments that I have in mind focus on what's unique about the human intellect, the human power of rationality, which other animals don't have. Other animals are clever in certain ways. They can hunt prey and they can solve certain problems, but what they don't have is the idea to grasp abstract ideas, abstract concepts, the sort of thing that we express in language, in distinctively human language. That's the difference in human beings that entails, when you unpack it, and this is something that Plato argues, Aristotle argues this as well, Thomas Aquinas argues this as well. When you unpack this idea of the human intellect, you'll find that it's a power in us, it's a capacity that's not material. That is to say, it's not entirely grounded in bodily processes, not even neural processes in the brain. Now, they don't deny, Aristotle and Aquinas certainly would not deny, that brain activity is part of what's going on when we think. But they would argue that can't be the whole story. That what matter by itself will not give you is the kind of meaning that you have in a human thought, or in a sentence that you write in a human language that expresses a human thought. That's a non-physical or immaterial aspect to human nature. Now, if that's the case, then because it's the case, when human beings die, what happens is we lose our bodily capacities. We walk and we talk. Those things depend on bodily organs like arms and legs and mouths and so forth. We digest food. That depends on a bodily capacity. Bodily organs like having a stomach. We see and hear. That depends on bodily organs like eyes and ears. Those things are gone. But at least part of what we do, even when we're alive, namely thinking, namely abstract thought of the sort that even the least intellectual human being is capable of, can still grasp abstract ideas. That's something that for Plato and for Aristotle and for Thomas Aquinas is not a physical or material power of human nature. It's something that we do even when we're alive that is immaterial. And so that aspect of us does not go out of existence at death. It carries on beyond death. And that's the foundation in these writers for an argument for the immortality of the human soul, that there's an aspect of human nature, what's highest in us, namely our capacity for thought, that survives the death of the body.
So even without a brain, even without any ability to function in the physical world, there is something else, but we can't quite define what exactly that is? That survives afterward?
I don't want to say we can't define. I think we can define. I would say, the short answer would be that it's the human intellect, the human mind that survives the death of the body, and that cannot be entirely explained in terms of or reduced to brain activity.